I'll take a little breather while the dragon pauses. This is chapter 2, by the way, why they were there in the first place. I'll take a little breather while the dragon pauses just to recap on what had brought Hiccup into this situation in the first place. It's always very irritating when you get hurtled into the middle of a story without any explanation as to why the heroes got there and how they got there and what on earth they were doing camping 3/4 of the way up the hard way of Angry Mountain in the middle of the winter in the first place. It's a perfectly balmy idea, surely. Here is what happened. Bright and early that morning, the tribes of the archipelago had gathered at the foot of Angry Mountain in a great jostling crowd of tents and sledges and skis, greeting old friends and enemies with a bump of their massive bellies, hunting dragons wheeling above them in the air, riding dragons getting into dragon fights. Perched right on the top of Angry Mountain was Flashburn's school of sword fighting. That's Hiccup. There he is, look with him with all his kit, his climbing kit, because he's about to climb up the mountain. Right at the top of Angry Mountain was Flashburn's school of sword fighting. The tribes were travelling there for the annual 3-week celebrations of feasting, fighting and festivities, which ended on New Year's Day with a sword fighting competition and the New Warrior ceremony, in which youngsters across the archipelago finally crossed over from childhood into adulthood and became warriors of their tribes. There are 2 ways to climb Angry Mountain. There is the easy way, a gentle, pleasant incline that you can stroll up quite merrily without even getting out of breath. That is the way the adult warriors would take with their sledges and tents and riding dragons and driver dragons and weapons and provisions. And then there is the hard way, a sheer vertical cliff face of rock that takes 2 days to climb. That is the way the young warriors-to-be would take to prove their worthiness to be admitted into the tribes. The test had been set way in the distant and dangerous past when Vikings did not have riding dragons to aid them, so the rule was the cliff must be climbed without dragonly assistance. The warriors-to-be were looking up at the gigantic rock face rather dubiously. They were a motley crew of pimply adolescents, all of them much larger and more muscly than Hiccup and Fishlegs, apart from Kamikaze, who was a good friend of Hiccup's, a tiny, fierce little bog burglar with a great deal of blonde hair that looked as if she had carelessly combed it with a pitchfork. That's Kamikaze, the tiny, fierce little bog burglar. Gobber the Belch, teacher in charge of the Hooligan Pirate Trading Programme, was giving the warriors-to-be a quick pep talk. Gobber was a 6.5-foot man-mountain with lungs like a foghorn and ears like deformed cauliflowers. He didn't have a sensitive side. "Okay, warriors, listen up," he shouted. "This is a stroll in the park. All you have to do is spend the next day and night climbing this sheer vertical rock cliff face. Once you get to the school, you will be practicing for the sword fighting competition on New Year's Day. This is your chance to learn and get tips from the greatest sword fighter in the archipelago, Flashburn himself." Oohs and ahs from warriors-to-be. "Oh, I can't wait to meet Flashburn in real life," Kamikaze chatted excitedly to Hiccup and Fishlegs. "He's supposed to be the perfect hero." There is the perfect hero. Look at him. He looks rather pleased with himself. Yes, he's a hero with a healthy sense of self-respect. Is that Flashburn? "Here he comes!" called out Thuggery the meathead, pointing upwards. A gorgeous red tiger dragon with Flashburn's crouched very low on its back dived down out of nowhere from above. Kamikaze let out a whoa and punched the air as the dragon zoomed over their heads so low that they could feel the wind of its wings. The dragon swooped so very low that Flashburn leant over and very cheekily grabbed Stoic the Vast's helmet off his head before flying upwards again. Stoic the Vast, Hiccup's father, was built in the traditional Viking mould, with muscles like footballs, a beard like a thunderstorm, and about as many brain cells as would fit into a teeny tiny teaspoon. He was not amused. "Oh, that Flashburn, he hasn't changed one bit," snorted Stoic as everybody laughed and the youngsters oohed and ahed. "Calm down, you show-off," yelled Stoic. "It's going to be nightfall by the time we get going at this rate." I don't know. These heroes, no consideration. Finally, with a graceful, zooming swoop, Flashburn's red tiger came into land directly in front of Stoic, and Flashburn did a complete double somersault over the dragon's head, landed on his feet, and offered Stoic back his helmet with an elegant bow. "There you are, Stoic, my dear. Don't call me dear, fumed Stoic, snatching it back. Get on with it, why don't you? Flashman smiled and sprang onto a nearby rock so that everyone could see him. Flashman was an extremely good-looking man with a lot of long blonde hair. His famous gold sword-fighting belt was around his waist, with the captured swords of some of the most famous sword fighters in the archipelago thrust into it. Greetings, old fatsos, smiled Flashman good-humouredly. Why, Moggot on the meathead, you've put on weight I hardly recognise you. Bertha, I'm not sure that shade of violet really suits you. Madguts the murderess, you're losing your hair already. He's a bit... Oh, look, by the way, that's the ceremonial sword-fighting belt. The leather was dyed red for a red belt, blue for a blue one. Flashmaster level, so it's like karate, you know, where you get different levels. Flashmaster level were black with a bronze, silver or gold buckle. So black belt with a gold buckle is the top one. And swords go in there, you see. Greetings, warriors to be. Flashman ignored the slight rumblings of annoyance from the oldest warriors. I have the great good luck and the extraordinary good fortune to be the great Flashmaster himself. You may cheer. The younger warriors cheered. Flashman seemed to expect it. Flashman pointed at the vertical cliff face of rock. This, the hard way up Angry Mountain, is the ultimate test. Are you the stuff that a hero is made of, or are you a jellyfish in a skirt? If you pass this test and get to my school, which is, of course, the most brilliant school in the universe, you will be practising for the sword-fighting competition on New Year's Day and competing for the sword-fighting belts. The green belt is the lowest, then blue, then purple, black, red, and after that you progress to bronze, silver and gold, and then you have earned the right to call yourself a Flashmaster. Of course, we're not expecting any of you to get that far. There are not that many Flashmasters in the archipelago. You never made Flashmaster level, did you now, murderess, my dear? I guess the murderess gave a furious strangled grunt. No finesse, explained Flashman kindly. The murderers fight like pigs in pyjamas. I guess gave a dreadful yaw and charged at Flashman, sword drawn. Flashman did not bother to draw one of the many swords thrust into his sword-fighting belt. Instead, he reached into the nearest rucksack and took out a spoon and an apple. This seemed to enrage Madguts even further. Madguts lunged forward like an infuriated bull, and Flashman's spoon and Madguts' sword met in a bewildering flurry of metal feints and parries. To the delight of the cheering tribesmen, 10 seconds later, Madguts found himself flat on his back in the snow, with an apple stuck on the end of his sword and a spoon on the end of his nose. You see, no finesse, and dead as a dodo in less than 10 seconds. Plain grinned Flashman, bowing to the applause, and I wouldn't laugh too hard. Nobody here would have lasted any longer. Thus endeth the first lesson, warriors in waiting. Cheerio, he cried, springing onto his red tiger with a perfect godlike vault, winking at everybody and waving his sword in goodbye. And good luck. We'll have the blanket ready when you get there. Remember, there's nothing wrong with a healthy sense of self-respect, especially when you're as brilliant as I am. He's so cool, isn't he, sighed Kamikaze. As you said, purred Stormfly, Kamikaze's beautiful golden hunting dragon, batting her eyelashes. He is the perfect hero. He's not so perfect, grumbled Toothless, who was smitten with Stormfly. Even for a human, he's got a big nose. They had come at last to the parting of the ways. With much heavy patting on backs and cheery waves, the adults of the tribe marched off to the easy way on their skis and skates, and with their dragons pulling sledges. And the warriors-to-be began to fasten on their gigantic rucksacks for the long climb up the hard way. We'll beat you to the top, grinned Kamikaze, running to join her gang of bog burglars, a terrifying gaggle of female bodybuilders, because girls are better than boys, and they always will be. Stoic the Vast bustled up to wish Hiccup goodbye. Good luck, Hiccup, my boy. No pressure, but remember, I became a gold Flashmaster when I was only 18, so I'm expecting great things from you, Hiccup, great things. Signs of leadership and so forth. This is your chance to impress your peer group and the other tribes. Great, said Hiccup gloomily. No pressure, then. Stoic stomped off happily, and old Wrinkly, Hiccup's grandfather, hobbled forward. There was an expression of slight horror in old Wrinkly's old black eyes, a tremble to his ancient limbs. I have a dreadful foreboding that terrible danger awaits you in the Flashburn School of Sword Fighting, Hiccup, muttered old Wrinkly, holding up a skinny finger. The world will need a hero, and it might as well be you. Keep your things in tip-top condition, for they are the king's things. Aldrinky pointed to Hiccup's shabby collection of equipment. And remember, look after your sword, Hiccup, for it is the sword that points the way. Good luck. The old man shook Hiccup's hands as if he was shaking it for the last time. Oh dear, that's not a very good sign. Tears in his eyes. And with that, still muttering to himself, he hobbled off to join the elderly and the children who'd returned to keep the home fires burning on Berg. Great, said Fishlegs. That's great, that is. Terrible danger, my favourite kind. What was all that weird stuff about your things being the king's things? I have no idea. The thing about grown-ups, said Hiccup, trying to squeeze his blanket into his already bursting at the seams rucksack, is that they're always wanting to be this great hero and leader. What's wrong with being normal, for Thor's sake? What's wrong with just being so-so at stuff? They're just totally unrealistic. To read the rest of the chapter tomorrow. Oh dear, I think old Wrinkly might be right for once.